So let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals defense, because they're not just having a bad season. A deep dive into the analytics is saying something way, way bigger. It suggests they might be on a path to become one of the worst defenses in the entire history of the NFL. Now that's a wild claim, right? So in this explainer, we're going to break down the numbers and see what's really going on. Let's get into it.
Look, we've all seen bad defenses. But what happens when a defense isn't just bad, but maybe one of the worst ever? That is the question we are exploring today with the Bengals, and honestly, the data is pretty jaw-dropping.
All right, so let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get to the verdict here. This isn't just about a team underperforming for a few games. The main finding from this analysis is much bigger than a simple slump.
Yeah, you heard that right. We're not just talking about the worst defense this year. The numbers are trending towards them being one of the worst the league has ever seen. That's a huge, almost unbelievable statement. So how can anyone make a claim like that? Well, let's dig into the advanced metric that makes this whole argument possible.
So to really get our heads around just how bad we're talking, we can't just look at yards allowed or points on the board. We've got to dig into the analytics. And the key metric here, the one that tells the whole story, is called DVOA.
The best way to think about DVOA is like a grade for every single play. It asks, how well did this defense really do in this exact situation against this specific team? It filters out all the junk stats you get in garbage time. And here's the most important part you need to remember. For a defense, a high DVOA is really, really bad. You want that number to be low.
And wow, this chart really puts it all into perspective. You see the elite defenses way down at the bottom with low, even negative numbers, which is fantastic for them. Then you have the league average, right in the middle. And then, way up top, in a completely different stratosphere, you have the Bengals. I mean, look at the gap between them and just the average defense. It's not a gap, it's a chasm.
Okay, so we've established the what here. The DVOA is off the charts bad. But why? What's the actual problem on the field? The data points to one critical, glaring weakness that offenses are just hammering week after week.
It all comes down to their pass defense. The entire unit just seems to fall apart when the ball's in the air. And you know, in today's NFL, where the passing game is king, that is the absolute worst weakness you could possibly have. Opposing QBs aren't just having success, they're having a field day.
Okay, this right here really breaks down the mismatch perfectly. On the left, you've got the blueprint for a modern, efficient QB. You know, the guys who complete tough passes and love to go deep. And on the right, you've got the Bengals defense, which is basically a welcome mat for exactly that kind of attack. It's like a skeleton key for this specific defense.
So this leads us to what the analysis is calling the perfect storm scenario. This is what happens when that perfect offensive key finds this perfectly designed defensive lock. It's when an offense's greatest strength lines up perfectly with the Bengals' biggest weakness.
And here it is, the recipe for an absolute blowout. It's a pretty simple recipe, but it is devastating. You start with one historically bad defense. You add in an opponent that is built to throw the ball with ruthless efficiency. And what do you get? You get an environment where that offense can put up some truly mind-boggling numbers.
This right here, this is the core idea. A good offense is always a good offense. But against this Bengals defense, its value is amplified. The source material puts it perfectly. Its value becomes more valuable than normal. So what does that mean? It means every successful play, every first down, every touchdown has an even bigger impact because the defense just has no answer.
So, when you put all of this together, the terrible DVOA, the leaky pass defense, this perfect storm idea, the analysis comes to a pretty clear and unavoidable conclusion about what happens next.
And let's use a team like the Miami Dolphins as a perfect example of why this is such a disaster. They are literally the nightmare matchup for the Bengals. They check every single box we've talked about. High offensive efficiency? Check. An aggressive pass-heavy attack? Check. A quarterback who fits that high completion, deep throwing profile we saw earlier? Absolutely. For the Bengals, this isn't just a bad matchup. It is a strategic catastrophe waiting to happen.
And that brings us to the final takeaway, which is summed up perfectly by this quote. Bengals' defensive weaknesses plus Dolphins' offensive efficiency will decide the game. At the end of the day, it's just simple math. The historic vulnerability of this defense against a surgically precise passing attack becomes the one factor that defines the entire game. It's a pretty stark reminder that in the modern NFL, one fatal flaw can make everything else completely irrelevant.